Today I'm talking to Joel Bradley. Joel is a creative director and innovation coach at Sky Television. He calls himself an accidental creative. And there's actually quite a good story connected to that. We also talk about deep listening, making space for others, and being playful. We talk about creative leadership, obviously, and the leadership cult and mythology. And we're going to talk about knowledge keeps like a fish. Yes. We discuss empathy. Can you walk in someone else's shoes? I actually don't think you can. And we talk about having dyslexia. And, being a dyslexic myself, that was very revealing to me. Dyslexia has been such a positive/negative influence in my life. It has shaped me as a person, and it has made me very insecure when I was younger. But it also wired my brain differently and made me think differently, which turns out to be a very good thing in the end. And I really hope that everyone who's listening and has dyslexia or knows someone with dyslexia, and, my daughter was diagnosed with dyslexia just, a couple of days ago, that, you don't feel sorry for either yourself or someone else. It is a superpower. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. So enjoy.
I guess who I am is somebody who sort of came to being a creative by accident, and then discovered that actually I can do it. I don't come from maybe a sort of arts or graphics background. And because I've sort of discovered, well, I can do it, I have a deeply held belief that actually anyone can be doing it, and that it's a necessary and sort of plausible skill that I can help give people and for them to learn. And I think if you're talking about who I am, those are my values, and that's sort of what drives me. And any way that I can get the maximum number of people involved in the process, then I know I'm happy. And I can start to feel the buzz of collaboration, and and it's like, take the idea. I don't care, but just as long as I've had that period of time, then I'm great. Yeah. Is that clear?
So when did you? Well, it's clear.
Yeah.
But when did you? I mean, you talk about it. It happened by accident. What was the accident? When did it happen? Was there like a moment? Okay. Like, was there like a pivotal moment, or is it a slow evolution?
I mean, it's purely by accident. So I don't know. We've had other conversations about dyslexia, for instance, yes. And so that's the thing that's been present.
You have dyslexia.
Yeah. So do I. But I was only properly diagnosed a couple of years ago. Ironically, when I was doing a master's degree in creative writing. So, okay, that was handy to find out then. But then when I went off to university, I got the grades at the last moment. I got the place at the last moment. So I ended up on normally you'd go off to a halls of residence, but I phoned up the university and they said, well, you can go live in this house on the hill in Bristol. Okay, I'm going to go live in the house on the hill in Bristol. And this place was full of people doing drama and TV at Bristol. And they were a great bunch of people. They were all super creative and have gone on to different great things. And I was like, wow. And a lot of my friends then were part of that world. And I was like, damn, I want to do that. But, I'm doing philosophy and politics. So then I sort of applied for a job with the BBC, and I didn't get the job, but I got loads of interviews, and it was quite a sort of breakthrough idea. I won't go into what the idea was now. And so how can I do more of that? And then, waited and waited and waited. And I found a place called the School of Communication Arts, which was run by a brilliant guy called John Gillard. And suddenly up until that point, I didn't see how I could contribute to anything or be part of anything. And then at that school with this teacher, John Gillard, and this idea of working with an art director as a copywriter and coming up with creative ideas that, you could suggest, build, craft. It suddenly was a way forward for me. I mean, I had loads of opportunities before that to do all sorts of banking stuff, and I couldn't even fill out the forms. I would get halfway through a form, I go, geez, what is this? And for some reasons, I'd met like the heads of great big banks. And they said, yeah, I want you to join the bank. Get the form, fill it out. I want you to join. I was like, okay, great. That sounds brilliant. Whatever that is. No, just can't do it. So just by accident, I sort of slowly fell into that world. Yeah.
How is it? Because obviously out of pure personal interest, the story around dyslexia is interesting to me because it's been very significant for me, but I've been diagnosed very early on. So I've known that most of my life from my childhood that I didn't fit into school systems and all kinds of things because I had dyslexia and I was aware of it.
Yeah.
So how did that? Because was it very different for you? Do you feel that it had an impact in how you kind of related to school and
others? It was just a mystery to me. So I would say write an essay, and it would come back, and I get totally landed that essay, and it would come back covered with red pen, with bits being moved around, bits of logic being moved around, and there'd be notes in it saying everything's here. And everything's actually really good. There's lots of really good insight, but it's just all in the wrong order. I go, well, and I thought I was like, for years and years and years, I just thought I was some sort of freak because I couldn't put stuff in the same order. So it was like my sort of secret. And in fact, it's just
your secret?
Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm going to have to keep this secret. I'm going to have to keep this to myself because if anyone finds out,
how can you keep that to yourself?
You discover, and I think this is where you discover interesting ways of doing things. You've got to find another way around all the time. You've got to find a little trick. You've got to, choose your words carefully. And by choosing your words carefully, you might choose your words differently, or you might have to find a different way of telling your story, or a way of collaborating with people so that they can somehow become a co-voice in whatever you're trying to get done. Otherwise,
What would you tell? So my daughter was just 2 days ago, she was diagnosed having dyslexia. No surprise to me, by the way.
Yeah.
But still. So if you would talk to a kid who is diagnosed with dyslexia, what would you say? Having all that experience, having it.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, I don't think I'm ready to talk to that kid because I feel a lot of heartbreak for them. I look and go, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be straightforward. But what I'd want them to believe is that there's every chance that they have innate intelligence that's going to get them through, and to embrace that and work out how to be the river around the rocks and go your way and believe in your way, that the mainstream's never going to be your way. And this was really brought to life to me. I went to this amazing conference in Staten Island, run by a guy called Charles Melcher, called The Future of Storytelling. And this was the best conference I've ever been to. It was stimulating. in so many ways. It was a mixture of tech and experience and all sorts of stuff. And I normally wouldn't go up to someone and just say, what is this about? How is this so amazing? But I just had to go and speak to this guy. And he said, well, as a kid, I was diagnosed as being dyslexic. So I was taught all these different ways of learning. I was taught to write letters in sand, to mold things in different ways, to find the words and the meanings, by, he's all, talking about, using like one of those big Chinese brushes to write words on. So he just found a different way, and it sounds like he had a lot of support, which is fantastic. But it led to this great outcome for him. So it's by no means a disaster, and to in some way imbue a sense of optimism for them, and it's going to be great.
Well, because the way you describe it, and also this example that you just gave, but also in your own experience, finding other ways, different solutions, finding ways around it. So in my own experience, if I had to write an essay and I wasn't sure if I could write it, spell it, the word that I was, I had to find another way of saying it. To me, it's been part of the sort of learning to be creative and be different and think different. And I've always said, well, specifically the last 15 years or so, I really experience it as my superpower, that I'm wired differently, and this world needs people who are wired differently. Right. So so in my case, I was diagnosed quite early on, and as a teenager, I didn't want school to know. So I had a difficult relationship with school because they thought I was either stupid or arrogant or ignorant or I don't know, whatever.
Oh God, yeah.
They were like, because so
not trying hard enough.
Not hard, yeah. But they were always, but I was actually quite a good student, except that all of a sudden my grades were really bad on one hand and good at, so they didn't know how to deal with me. Yeah. Trying to keep it a secret. That sort of, I recognize that. That, and I still do. And as a facilitator, I develop skills, like very simple thing, like I will never go up to a whiteboard and start writing for a group of people. I will have someone else do it. I will always be able to kind of give the stage to someone else. So I can link a lot of the things that I do, in what I do, to having dyslexia, being insecure about writing. Because I need a spell check first. I need to Google the word first. Is that, do you recognize that?
I think there's a really interesting thing that we're talking about here, which is, and which might lead us to, if one of the really great traits of creative leadership is to be able to empathize with people. Okay. And really, if you're going to be empathic, you've got to be curious about someone's their secret world and what's making them tick and how to get the best out of them, because that you have the secret world that has been blocking your communication with the outside world. And when you find a way of getting through, it's much, much better. Okay, so I think that's one of the super skills, and where that might meet with leadership is, well, what's going on with them? Rather than that guy or that woman isn't doing the thing that I want, it's like, well, what's stopping them? Right. And by understanding or trying to understand what's stopping them, isn't that better? Isn't that really what being a good creative leader is about? What's stopping you from doing the thing? Okay. So if we change this, if we find a new and a different way of doing it, then you're going to get somewhere better.
So if you are aware of the fact that you are, in a way, this sounds a bit dramatic, but broken, you start understanding that other people are also broken somewhere, somehow. And you have to understand how they are broken, otherwise, in order to fix it, or at least to acknowledge it, or which is leading obviously to empathy for you, or going to create solutions for you. I'm going to understand you, and I don't need you anymore. Whereas I think it is about actually acknowledging I don't know, and help me.
Yeah, what a powerful word those are. I don't know. And if more people just said, you know what, I don't know. And then I think the root to empathy is deep, deep listening. And to really, really listen, and to really pay attention, and to make that almost a meditation. And then you get to a place where you said that you never go up to the whiteboard, that you'll give the pen to someone else. Okay, so which is like lovely, but what you're giving is someone else space. And the great thing you can do, I think, as a leader is just to, and I find it so inspiring when I see that anyone do this, and I try and do it, is to hold space for someone. And just like, okay, look, I'm just going to just push everything back a little bit, and let's give this person some space to do their thing or to talk, and let's listen. And that's where the good stuff normally ends up being. Like, so I really like the accidental thing about, you don't want to go to the whiteboard first. It's just like, okay, fine. But just as long as the same person doesn't do it the whole time. Just in the way, okay. Just as long as you can make sure somebody else gets hold of that marker pen.
Yeah. So did you, because, so you were at school and that with dyslexia, it kind of, that's not easy. Obviously, you turn out okay, so it's not a disaster. But did your parents what did your parents do?
They worked like absolute crazy ones in the background. Actually, my father passed away when I was quite young, and he was my sort of reading. He was the one. They were both teachers, and he was like the one leading me in the reading. But
so they were both teachers. So okay.
They're both teachers.
So did they know what's going on?
Well, yeah. So this is the thing. So just before my mother passed away, well, a little bit before, she sent me all the letters, and to the education boards. In the background, she'd been saying, he's bright, but he's different. Okay, he's bright, but he's got good qualities. And she'd done a really good job at, without affecting me, without making me feel I was totally unaware. I was aware there was an issue, but I didn't know what it was. But she didn't, and I spoke to her about it, and she said, well, you had a stutter, you had, all sorts of things going on. I used to have a speech impediment as well. You had enough going on. I didn't want to give you that as well. So, which I think is really good in hindsight. And then like years later, I was 32, 33, I was working as a copywriter at Saatchi's in London, and I was up all night trying to fix some copy. And then like at 10:30, I called her up, and she's like, oh, what are you doing at work? And it's like, I just can't make this copy make sense. And she's like, that's because you're dyslexic. And she just dropped it there.
Really?
And it's like, okay. And I was like, okay, this is the time I need to know that. And but it's fine. It's, what, it was the best way. Like, often the way it happens, if someone has good intentions, then the way it happens is probably the best way.
Listen, you were at that time a copywriter at Saatchi and Saatchi.
Yeah.
So if anyone listens who has dyslexia, that is something, especially if you're young and you just became aware of that. Becoming a copywriter is probably the last thing you would expect that you would become.
No, exactly. So that's the mystery to me.
How did that happen?
Because I couldn't draw, and I wanted to do that. What I was saying earlier on about I wanted to do that creative thing. And so I can sort of write stuff. Everyone can write stuff. I just wanted to be in the room doing the thing with the people who put their feet up on the desk and don't have to wear suits to work. I want to be in that world, and so that was my way in. And
was that your first? Was that your first series position, series job, or was there something before you came to the agency?
Yeah, I think that was the first, and I was there for a long time. And I wouldn't call it a serious job. It was way too much fun to be a serious job. Yeah, but yeah, it was. Yeah, so many great people. Yeah.
So you've been a copywriter at such and such for a long time. What was the best part of being a copywriter there? Why was it so much fun?
I don't know. Why was it so much fun? I don't know. When you think about like the creative leaders in that setting, there were lots of stand-up, and they were all amazing. But there was a guy called Paul Arden, okay, right at the beginning, who actually did crits at college as well, and he would scare the crap out of people. Like people, he was fearless, and he would tell you exactly what he thought about everything that you'd done, but then pull out the thing that you had the least value attached to. You think that you thought was the dumbest idea, and you go, "That's the one. That's good. Go off and do that." And you go, "What?" And so it would be such a sort of like properly mind expanding experience, because you go, I didn't even, I thought we should be, but he's right. And then anyone like that. So, and the executive creative directors would change every couple of years, so you get a new taste of that. So
was that your first experience of leadership, of being led by these different characters?
Yeah, and that these guys didn't and women didn't have to weren't conventional leaders. They weren't. They were all a little bit different, and had a strong sense of purpose, and held their values to be true beyond any commercial values. There was, they recognize all the commercial prerogatives and necessities, but getting a good idea out was the most important thing. Always getting the idea nobody had ever seen before out somehow from whatever team and whatever way was.
Did you take? I mean, if you look back at that period and those leaders, are there things that you took from that you have kind of made your own, that you are applying right now?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of indelible impact that working with those people had. Just why be normal? Why assume that the way you've done before, like last week, is the right way to do it now? Let's just turn it on the head, rip it all up again, and start again each time. Why? Yeah, why? Yeah, I mean, from that time, like the quote that stayed, or the little aphorism that stayed with me is something. A philosopher, somebody said, "Knowledge keeps like a fish." Okay, it just goes off really, really quickly. So all your self-assurance about what's right and the right way of doing it, just mess it up each time. Just try something different each time, and that's
knowledge keeps like a fish.
Knowledge keeps like a fish. Yeah, and now that I'm working in a more corporate environment, working with Sky, and they Sky TV, and it's a great culture. It's a very innovative culture, but they would like to get to a process as quickly as possible. And I find that impossible, because as soon as process becomes procedure, then you're broken. Then you're never going to come up with anything. So yeah, so staying down in sort of fuzzy, messy process, and really just the creative process rather than a procedure is always the fight. That's always the thing you're trying to make space for. And it means you have to constantly destabilize. That maybe it doesn't make you the most popular person.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be my next question. So how are the people that, in that space that you're destabilizing, how do you keep them on board? How do you keep them with you, and how do you keep them confident that that's actually the right thing to do, where people obviously trying to find more sort of a secure space? And
so I think a really big learning for me is you are not alone. Okay, you have to find alliances, and whenever you find an alliance, you have to build it, and you have to, when you find a like mind and a like spirit, okay, it may not be it's exactly right, but when there's enough familiarity, then you have to build that, and as much as possible, do stuff with people. I mean, for me, I've always recognized the possibility of leading with somebody else or working with somebody else all the time, and then the more you can do that, the more impact you can do. If you've got two good leaders, Jobs and Wozniak were the team, I guess, at one point. If you got two really good people who are aligned around, the impact of that is always going to be better. I challenge this notion of a sort of titular leader, the solo leader, and that being.
But that's what people do think often, right? So
yeah,
I mean, if you look at the way people think about Apple and think about the Amazon, and there's these godlike leaders at the helm, but you're questioning Richard Branson,
Yeah, well, I think there's maybe a mythology there, and a cult around people. But the reality, I guess, even if you went and looked at cults and all religions, that there's a mythology, but the actual leadership is an alliance of people who have worked out the way forward. No one can do this stuff on their own. You need to, and as much as you can, again, it's your example of the whiteboard, making space for people to come up, to take the pen. Okay, great. And at some point, you're going to be, I assume you'd finish off that sentence at some point, you're going to take that pen back. Okay. And they're going to give you space. You give it to someone else, or, but then you're giving them, so then you're forming that alliance there. And that's what, and that's what it's all about. And it's
exactly.
Yeah. So I challenge the notion of a titular leader who's this, one person.
Okay.
One human being who can do it.
So before we started the recording, we talked about teaching and being teachers, and I said you shared this beautiful quote, and I said I'm going to try to manipulate you, or at least the conversation in such a way that you're going to share that quote, but I couldn't find a nice angle to do so. So I'm just going to ask you, straightforward question, because it is also a little bit connected to your parents really being teachers. And so I do kind of, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about teaching and teachers, and whether there's a teacher inside of you. But also you share something very beautiful which I think people should know about.
Yeah, I think we were talking about teaching, and we were talking about how what a great teacher does is they give a love for for learning. They give a love not necessarily for that subject, but they give a love for a thing. So that at some point, whenever you discover the thing that you love, you'll know how to examine it and get involved in it and understand it at a deeper level. And so that's what great teachers do, I think.
But isn't that maybe also part of that mythology that we were talking about? That there is a mythology of leadership, or of this guru, or of this godlike person, or this brand, or this purpose, or wherever it sits, that if you can kind of communicate, or you can share sort of that love for something, that people will, they will, like in the classroom, the students, the kids will work for you because you're passionate about something, and they recognize that.
Yeah.
Whereas a company that is without that, so maybe and I totally agree with you about sort of this kind of these godlike leaders. That's not all, obviously. It is about these connections, but there is something about passion and belief and purpose and understanding why you do what you do, right? So is there so being a teacher, and creating space for others, is there some connection in your mind between those things?
Yeah, well, first off, I think the trick is maybe it's not about knowledge. Like we said before, knowledge keeps like a fish, and it's like, well, don't actually buy into everything I'm saying, but maybe buy into the way I'm doing it would be an approach. The highest compliment that I ever get from anyone is, I'd like to be doing what you're doing. How can I get to be doing what you're doing? How you're leading groups of people? Because that got me somewhere. And so yes, really, really happy to teach people to a way of thinking, a mindset. How can I get people a mindset, not actually the knowledge? So how do you teach a mindset? I don't know. You can only do it by example and by people experiencing things. And so they've got to be with you. They've got to be in the room. They've got to believe in what you're doing, and they've got to then believe in themselves. And so hopefully by making space for them, you allow them to believe in themselves. And I mean, I just find that incredibly empowering. And then like people end up coming out to you and go, how do I get to do that? Because that was great. Being in that space and that way of doing things was great, rather than actually what you're saying in a sort of doctrinal or knowledge sense. I think that's less important. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that might have been a bit of a ramble.
No, but I can rewind it later and listen at it again. So that's no. I hear what you're saying, and I actually really, I think so. What you're saying is not about what I say, but it's what I do.
Yeah,
it's by example, which is obviously very difficult, because that's so deeply personal again, like, because it's not being, and it's because it's not about being perfect. It is about being connected to who you are. And so how do you translate that to someone else? How do you teach someone, even by examples? Because so that's, I think it's very powerful because it's not simplifying it.
Yeah.
Because it isn't simple. It isn't easy. How do you teach a mindset exactly?
Yeah. So one small example that's coming to me is somebody comes to me and says, so what should we do now in this situation? Okay, well, what do you feel important? What do you feel we should do? Oh, something like this. Okay, and then in that moment to turn around and start doing as quickly as possible with them in front of them, to be doing that thing that they said to do. Not necessarily giving them credit. It's not about that, but for them to see you immediately embracing their thinking and putting it into the center of things. When you're facilitating a big group and like the business leader or your co-leader is going, what should we do now? It's okay. What do you think? Well, we could try this. Right, we're going to do it now. And you just immediately do it.
Exactly.
But you didn't prepare. No, you don't need to prepare. Yes. Just do it. Just give it a go. And then we learn. And then come on. And then you get energy and momentum. And then you get belief. And you go, oh my God, that thing that okay, good. Okay, well, the next time I'm going to get a lot more belief.
Yes. And because in that sense, you as a leader, you show you stretch the boundaries of what that other person thought was possible or allowed.
Yeah.
Right. You say, well, you can do this too. You can just go and do it unprepared. Right.
Yeah. And to be utterly, because no one is truly altruistic. And I don't want to sound like I'm being altruistic here. I find that personally energizing and first of all, I love to see the look in people's eyes. I love to see the surprise in their eyes. I love to feel the risk, the risk of just doing it, and it almost always paying off. And if it doesn't, does it really matter? I guess going back to the beginning, like if you're dyslexic and people keep on calling you out for being a fool, you get used to you being the guy or the woman who's made a mistake, and so fine, I'm totally comfortable with that, and we can just cover it over if it doesn't work, but almost sort of 99% of the time it will work. And I just get a buzz out of that. I get a buzz out of it happening. So as much as possible, genuinely making what other people, their tiny little fragment of an idea, just chuck it in.
So what about the future? What do you see for yourself, but also if you think about leadership and the leadership skills and what you're describing now, and what is for you? What's next for you? What are you developing something? Are you thinking about something? Is there something you're worried about or enthusiastic about? Or
it's a really tricky time, isn't it? People are right now getting fairly tense in the sort of, we're just coming out of this, we're just going into the period of uncertainty. We were in the period of certainty where we knew we were locked down. Right. Now we're going to the period of uncertainty, like now what happens? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people getting very nervy about future, their work, and like certainly people in like the innovation field are going, well, we're going to be the first thing that gets cut out, aren't we? And it's almost like self-fulfilling. No, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, and definitely shouldn't be that way, because we're going to need to think of like clever ways of being and doing things. And so I guess my goal is still to make space in this tense time for people to be playful and to tell stories and to have fun, because those are the ways we'll always get to. And actually the third thing I think is to be mindful. So these are the three ways that we're going to get to the interesting stuff. And the more we can make space for those three things, and it takes a lot of work and a fair bit of courage to get people to be playful, to get people to start telling their stories and to open up and to just calm down and reflect a little bit, for a few moments on what they've got. And that takes, that really sums up to me what creative leadership should be about. So I'm going to just be continue relentlessly to fight for those things. I'm not sure in what context that's going to be, but I can't see me being any other way for the time being. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you very much for this conversation.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking to you. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, likewise. Yeah. And we people with dyslexia should keep, we should stick together.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Very relatable. Also,
totally.
Yeah. But it makes, the more I talk to people with dyslexia, the more I start realizing that it has such a big influence on the way you think and the way you see the way you see the world and your reality of things, because of the experiences that you have, even though, you've dealt with it differently. I've been a copywriter too, by the way.
So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a very, very interesting topic to talk about, maybe more deeply in the future with some other people as well, about dyslexia and what it actually does. Because I think a lot of kids feel very insecure about that, and young people feel very insecure about that, when actually it is, and if I listen to you, I'm more and more convinced it is a superpower. It is something. You are wired differently. You're clearly wired differently than most.
I'm going to put that on my LinkedIn now.
Yeah. And that's what we need. We need people who think differently. We need diversity of thought. So thank you very much for sharing your story. I enjoyed it, and I hope to talk to you a lot more.
Yeah. Well, look, I would love to do a larger thing about dyslexia. That would be great. Maybe we could bring in some other people. Yeah,
that's a deal. I'm going to put that on the podcast, so we will never forget that.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it. That'd be brilliant.
Cool. Thank you.